in my 20s, I just wanted to party and, hang out with white chicks, now,
How did you do? How did that
did
go
not
for
go
you?
good. I mean, the nose.
Not go well.
You know the nose, right? So,
I mean, I made a movie about how it didn't go well for me. So.
Welcome to another FUTRtech video podcast. Today, we are so excited to have writer, director, actor, investment banker, and entrepreneur, Ravi Patel. You may know Ravi from his award-winning documentary, Meet the Patels.
This is the most unnecessary pep speech I've ever got in my life.
And the Charlize Theron, Seth Rogan hit Long Shot, as well as from his work on the shows Master of None, Grandfathered, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Scrubs, Hawaii Five-0, Grey's Anatomy, Children's Hospital, and The Comedians. He's also going to be appearing in the much-anticipated Wonder Woman 1984, as well as the upcoming Butter and Netflix upcoming Messy and the HBO Max docu-series Ravi Patel's Pursuit of Happiness. And if that isn't enough, Ravi is co-founder of This Saves Lives, where every time you buy a snack bar, you provide life-saving food to children in need. Welcome, Ravi.
Wow, you just got me amped. Wow.
You got me amped.
What an intro. Why am I so poor? I just listened to that whole thing and I'm like, wait a second.
Well, I got to say, you have like 10 jobs going here, so you really do live up to the Patel namesake.
I was going to say, if anyone, Sandesh more than anyone gets it. Like, we love businesses, man. We love them. Can't help it.
Yeah. I like the first time that we met, he's like, yeah, and I got this like granola company, that I'm working on. I'm like, oh, interesting. And then I Googled it and I'm like, yeah, his acting career. Now he's got a granola company. I mean, it makes sense. What don't you get? What's not so obvious?
Well, I tell you, I actually, I don't know if this is a delusion or not, but I would say I consider myself an entrepreneur way more than I do an actor in terms of my strengths and weaknesses. I just kind of fell into this career and I've kept it going because of the other doors that it opens for me.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's awesome. if you feel that your strengths are more in the entrepreneurship, I mean, you've had a very successful acting career. So on the entrepreneurship side, I think you're going to do well.
Thank you.
There might be hope for you there. So, what's up with the Patels? And for those of you who haven't seen Ravi and his sister's documentary, Meet the Patels, which chronicles his family as Ravi deals with the challenges of finding love while straddling two cultures. And if you haven't seen it, stop watching and go watch it right now.
Well, we should also tell people how we even found each other. Which is, I'll tell your listeners, which is I play in a poker game on Zoom, which is one of the pandemic hits for a lot of dudes. It's like playing a lot of poker games, and I'm in this one poker game. It's a weekly game. I'm actually playing in a lot of poker games, and I'm definitely developing a problem, but it's not a problem because I'm making a lot of money. So I'm just playing poker. Anyway, one of the guys in this poker game who I only met through the game, one day texted me on the side, goes, "Oh, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but my friend is like your biggest fan and it would mean the world to him if we could connect you. Would it?" And I'm like, "No, dude, of course." I'm like, "He's a Patel?" I was like, "Yeah, of course, bro." I'm like, I love it. And then Sandesh was kind of similar. Like you were like so like just giving me so much praise and it was and love, and I was like and by the way, it meant so much to me because the kind of Patel code and this really the Patel code is that we take care of each other. We're all part of a tribe, and to bring it back to what you originally mentioned, which is that documentary, that's why that was so fulfilling. I mean, it I can't imagine a more fulfilling thing for me in my life to make something that our people really love. because that's literally what our culture is. Before we even started recording, that's what we were talking about. Our culture is built upon the idea of community first, and it butts heads with, the kind of American value system, which are all around, individuality.
Yeah, well, the one thing I gotta say that I love so much about that documentary was your interaction with your sister, Geeta. That totally warmed my heart. I love when siblings are tight, like you guys are.
Do you have siblings?
I do, and I'm tight with my siblings, and it's I think that's a really cool thing to see, and even though there was so much conflict over your choices in that documentary, because for those who haven't seen it, your parents want you to marry an Indian girl, and you're dating a white girl, and it's a big conflict in your family. Right. But through all that, the love and respect that's there in your family is really awesome. And I don't think that like in American culture we see that a lot. I mean, I think there's a different form of it, but it's not like that. And I think that's why it's both a little strange to people, but also, there's a very heartwarming part to it.
Yeah, I've heard a version of that, so many times about this movie, and it's again one of the gifts of making this movie has been what it's done for my family, including myself within it. And my relationship with my sister. I mean, actually, that was probably the biggest point of inflection in our relationship, because we made that movie for 6 years. We couldn't fire each other. And at one point, we fucking hated each other. Can I swear on this? Am I swearing
absolutely.
allowed?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so we made each other cry. We sent each other to therapy, but as a result, we broke through. I mean, you guys are married. I'm sure you've been through that in marriage.
Oh, yeah.
Your low point is where, if you're lucky, you build some better foundation. And with my sister and it was a big turning point. I've had this in my marriage where, I was talking to my therapist about it this morning. My marriage, we had this low point. But I look back now, and that was actually the real beginning of our marriage, because that was when I actually started doing the work, and I actually started seeing her with, as herself, and with real compassion and love and respect. Because let's face it, when we were dating our wives, we were selling a version of ourselves, and they were selling a version of themselves.
Yeah,
and it was all bullshit.
Right.
But yeah, man, that moment in our family, I think, in case you can't tell, you're not going to have a problem getting me to talk. There's, do you remember, we were talking about this actually before we started recording as well. That moment when we first went into someone else's house, especially of a different culture, we all know what that feeling's like. First of all, the smells. You're like, wait a second. And then you realize, oh shit, my house smells. I didn't know that, but my smell, if you're Indian, your house your smell is actually worse than their smell. And you're like, but you don't know it. And then, when you go into someone else's family, you see these nuances of the way they live that you otherwise would have never had access to. And I think perhaps that movie gave a real, it was voyeuristic in that sense. It gave people access into a family, and how often do we really get to be inside those kinds of conversations, those fights? Now, in terms of the compliment you said about my family, that's something that I got to learn because I make this movie, because first of all, I edited and directed it. So I'm literally sitting in front of footage for thousands of hours, and I'm creating characters out of characters that already exist. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's I got to see myself and my parents as these people, as these call them fictional characters with strengths and weaknesses and things that they need to overcome. The way you analyze characters in a story, I got to have that third party separation. And by the way, to that extent, intensely introspective for myself. And then to hear what you just said about my family, I've gotten that compliment so many times, and it's given me a perspective on how fortunate I am to even have that,
Well, there's a moment in the movie,
totally.
and I didn't intend to speak constantly about this movie, but it's such a great movie. Sorry, I'm harping on it. But there's a moment when you guys are in the car and it's sort of, you've been through all the dates and you've done all that, and you're going back to your girlfriend, right? And you're trying to get your mother to accept it, and she's really struggling with that. Mm-hmm. But there's a moment where she's in the backseat of the car and you're driving, and she just says, whatever, I love you, you do what you've got to do. And you can see it's like breaking her heart to say that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But she was saying it, and she meant it. And it was so, that's where like the waterworks start happening, for me in that movie. So I just think that's, I think I think there's a closeness that is, culturally there too, that, Americans are sometimes, when we get to know about it a little bit better, I think we get a little jealous of that closeness that you guys have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure, Ravi, with your mom and actually one of your aunts during the movie was like, tu ani સાથે લગન કરો તો તારા ઘર નથી આવવાનો, right? Right? Like if you marry this person, I'm not coming to your house, right? That's pretty hardcore stuff right there, right? I mean, that's a big, but I relate to that, right? Like when my mom used to say, basically every year that you're not married, I'm just dying that much faster.
That is the most Indian mom statement in the world.
Right?
They literally equate your life to their ability to live, like you're
right.
So
what's the deal? I mean, like, why is getting married so important? I mean,
well, it actually is foundational, and there's two things. One, and Sandesh can answer this as well as I can, but first of all, the thing we already discussed, community first. Mm-hmm. Okay, so marriage is, kind of the building blocks. It's seen. How often have we heard the parents, Sandesh, talk about it in terms of it being an alliance? So we love businesses and even family is a business. Okay. And that comes necessarily out of economics as well, at least in Gujarati families. But I think Indians in general, marriage is a financial opportunity.
Dude, I love during the movie too. Sorry to go back to the movie, but we're going to keep doing this because it's awesome. When you're actually in India, and I don't know if it's a relative of yours or someone else that is getting married, and you're like walking and you're asking him, so like you've only met her very little time. Like, it's such a big decision that you're making. Are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, what's the big deal? And then, and he's like, Ravi's like, well, why did you pick her? It's like, her nature was good. Her nature, which I'd never, and that's such a Gujarati word, right? Her nature was good, and her family was good. Yeah. So everything is good.
Just brainwashed.
Like, yeah. And she was homely and weedy.
Keep saying this.
Exactly. But look at that. Just thinking about it completely different. Talk about reconciling different values and different moralities. He was like, "This is the right fucking thing." I'm sure he was also like, why is this dude asking me this shit on the way, like literally walking? Wedding. I cringe. I cringe when I watch a lot of that, but that's one where when I watched it at the premiere, I was like, wait a sec. I've been so busy making this movie. I didn't stop to think like, this is so messed up.
dude, your face wow, and you're just kind of like, you do the little head bob after like, oh dude.
What is with the head bob thing, by the way?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Because they never want to say yes and they never want to say no. It's like, hey, can I borrow some money?
The Indian yes, no.
I got to get that one down, man. That's a good strategy. I like that.
Yeah. And another thing about Indian people too, man, it's like when he talks about community, there's something about money. What's interesting is if you have money, everyone's calling you, bro. Mm-hmm. We used to have people come over, and I'm sure us and Knuckle had the same thing, coming over just being like, hey, I want to start this new business. You got 10 grand, you got 15 grand. and it's just like, right. And it's like, oh yeah, of course we do. And I'm thinking, man, we must be rich, and then my mom argues with my dad, like, hey, we work hard for this, and many times you don't get paid. And it's a very close family member, but you just, you take the loss and you keep going.
You just made me realize Patels are perhaps the best evidence of socialism working.
That is totally true.
I just now figured that out. It's socialism. That's what it is.
Well, and it's working.
It is.
I mean,
It works.
I have you ever met an unsuccessful Patel? Until you bring home a white chick. But I mean, have you ever met an unsuccessful Patel?
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, you find them now in the second generation.
The slackers.
Yeah, that's honestly what it is. Like, our generation, like our parents were like the top 1% of the class, or, they worked their ass off.
Yeah.
And so we've all had a lot of pressure on us to succeed. And I also think generationally, like, I don't know how old y'all are. I'm 41. Like, I feel like I'm just on the end of that generation that was really obsessed with achievement and had was taught that from a masculinity perspective, I think, and I'm not saying this is a healthy thing, but I think part of what we were taught in terms of what it means to be a man, like strength and admiration can be gained from being a grinder and work. That is, I feel like part of our, I think that is part of how many of us have, from my generation, and I think y'all's, we're all the same.
Yeah.
That's what we were taught, that like, work your ass off and achieve in the workplace, and that makes you a man. And conversely, if you don't, you're not a man. Which obviously the world is paying the price for this mindset in a lot of terrible
exactly. Yeah. But you know what, man, I think in the new generation that's changing, and which is great, because I think now a lot of them are doing what I think that you have clearly been doing, and what Chris and I've tried to do, which is we just try to do cool shit. Like, it's not about the money that we make, it's about how do we make it. It's like, are we doing things that give us these exciting feelings and feelings like we're doing good stuff, And I think it's so great that the second generation now can't, the first generation, our parents worked so hard, right? Like, compared to how hard we work and the stress, it's not even close, right? Apples and oranges. But like, now it gives us the opportunity, because we've had an education, we've had opportunities. It gives us the opportunity to kind of pick what we want to do a little bit, and that's what's super exciting.
Hey, can I call bullshit on that though? Because man, when I run with the Indian dudes, I get run ragged. I mean, like, dude, Sundish never stops. He's always like, come on, we got one more thing. We can go do this. We can fly over here. We can do this. I'm like, dude, can I have a break, man? I'm a little tired. And like, and the guys in the valley that we meet, they're like, non-freaking stop, man. So I don't think you've made it quite as far as you say.
But you know what? But you know what it is, though, man. It's not. We work hard because it is.
Well, I think you have more opportunity now. I think that's the difference. There's more opportunity for your generation.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But I think I've had this going through like my midlife crisis kind of a thing. It's been like, all right, so my parents wanted me to marry an Indian girl, Patel, check, have kids, check, have a good job, check, then why am I not happy, And I think that's when I started to be like, okay, it's not the paycheck that excites me. It's this other thing. And I'm just so thankful to my parents, because without them going through all of that, now me and my spoiled kids can actually have a different experience of America, right? We're living the American dream, man.
We are, I'm very curious to see what that new experience of America is going to be. Because I feel like the concept of being a citizen of a country is going to dilute significantly in the next 20 years in terms of it being a core part of our identity. I think right now, what it means to be an American is a very strong thing, and it's very specific. And there's a lot about that that's insanely positive, and right now there's a lot about that that's insanely negative as well. But it feels like perhaps this is the point of inference where we see like globalization really accelerate on a cultural level. There's just there's just diminishing returns on what borders really do. I think these days. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean. Well, I completely pivoted the conversation.
No, but I think you're right. When we talked to, like I said, when we talked to the Chinese economists, and like I don't know if you've ever read the book Factfulness by Hans Rosling, but if you haven't read it, it's a really interesting book. But one of the things that he posits is that the pure density of the Asian economy is going to make the global economy pivot more towards Asia and Africa, right? And it's trending that way. And I think, America's not going to be able to maintain the economic dominance like it has in the past, and it's going to have to share the stage a little bit with some of these other countries. And I think what you're saying there, is true, because as that happens, it's going to be a little bit more global, right? And I think it's going to be interesting. The thing that I think is really going to be weird. I mean, we're living through this weirdest time of this like intense rise of racism in the U.S. I mean, and maybe it's not a rise of racism, and it's always been there. It's just now people are looking at it. It's exposed.
No, it's unveiling, and it's a rise for sure.
Yeah, and so I think that's the challenge that we have to get over. And I think it's interesting because like in Master of None. This is a great Indians on TV, that episode.
Social Network? The Indian guy is a white guy.
No, I read that he's 1/16th Indian.
Who cares? If you go back far enough, we're all 1/16 something. I'm probably 1/16 black. You think they're going to let me play Blade?
Where, you're talking about doing the accent, right? And Sundish and I joke about this stuff all the time because Sundish does a great accent, and, like he loves to, like play that up, and I'm like, I'm not doing that accent because that would be super bad.
That is the absolute correct instinct on your part. There is nothing more annoying than a non-Indian doing the fucking Indian accent to me and thinking that I think it's funny. And Sundesh, how many times in your life? I would say it happens even today. Once every 6 to 8 months. And it's well-meaning, but it's like, just no. I'm better at it than you are. Why do you think I think this is
That's
funny?
For sure. That's for sure.
Right.
Also, it's 2020. Like, just don't.
But yeah, the one thing I wonder though too is like, there's such an undercurrent of anger now in all of that. That I think it's changed the tenor of that. I mean, like in that, I think like accents and things like that. And maybe this is a dumb white guy, perspective, and like everybody's like pissed off about it always, but I think there's like more anger about it now because underlying it is this deeper anger that's coming out.
I totally agree. In fact, the thing I just told you about the accent, I'm reminded now of an awesome conversation I had. My HBO Max show, which you listed in your monologue about my career, which was very impressive. Thank you for doing all that homework. We did this episode. By the way, guys, my HBO Max show comes out August 27th. I think that's going to be released next week in the press. Anyway,
can't wait. Can't wait.
So we do an episode in Denmark, and it's about refugees and immigration. And I had this conversation with this academic there, kind of talking about what we just were discussing. And, he rightfully brought up, we started talking about the lack of forgiveness we have today in conversation. And that's obviously, I think we've seen like two big statements from, academics. And I think it was a lot of professors that did a statement. And then maybe yesterday, a group of journalists did something similar, which was just talking about how we're so hard on each other these days and we're not forgiving. And to your point, which was a well taken, great one. Like if someone comes and talks to you, and I will say, I never get pissed at people. I have before. I have definitely gotten pissed, but I generally don't. Someone comes and talks to me in accent and I can see in them that there's nothing hostile or negative or ill meaning about it. Then that's on me to treat it with kindness. And I can still, because someone's well-meaning, so I can be nice to them. Maybe I can explain to them why it makes me feel uncomfortable, but then also maybe I don't have to be uncomfortable about it. If someone's like, sometimes things that feel offensive aren't necessarily offensive because, to your point, they're triggers, they're reminders of this much broader macro thing. And we obviously live in a time, and the cancel culture is out of fucking control. And there's a lot of sloppy liberalism going on that undermines real liberalism. And nothing is more liberal than the marketplace of ideas, the free movement of thoughts without judgment. People should be able to say their opinions and disagree without being hammered for it.
Well, I think part of the problem though is white folks have had a lot of their opinions out there for a long time, and I think people are sick of hearing those opinions nowadays. So maybe it's time for some other opinions a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what? Even then, I'm one of the things that we're seeing in culture in a big way right now is white shame and white guilt, and that's a tricky thing for. I mean, I feel like I can hear it even in your cadence a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm keeping my head down. I'm trying to show reverence to let you know that I don't want to offend you or say the wrong thing or be disrespectful. And that's a tricky line to walk because it's awesome. It's an awesome instinct, but it's not necessarily fair to you. It's not necessarily fair, even though I understand why you justify it. I understand why it's justified, and I think everyone wants nothing more than for some racial equality to finally show the fuck up at this country.
Yeah,
and I think it's people like yourself who are leading the charge, in good things happening.
So it's funny because there's sort of like your public persona and your private persona, because there's things I say. Sundish and I are tight. There's a lot of love between each other, and we joke about shit all the time. And some of the shit we joke about is totally inappropriate, right? I mean, because mocking racism is funny. I mean, it's ripe. Racism is ripe for comedy, right? And so we joke about that shit all the time. But that's stuff I would never say publicly, right? Because I have to be aware of the context. Right.
Well, that's one thing that shouldn't change for a while, which is white people should not be allowed to do race jokes, period.
Yeah.
For I don't know, there should just be
put us in timeout.
We should all agree, maybe 100 years or so, well, you're up for parole. but that should just that much I'm okay with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But if we can't make Indian jokes, if I can't make, this is what I was telling Chris. I'm like, man, if I can't joke around about this stuff, I'm going to go crazy, because there's so much goodness there. My defense mechanism growing up when, I was being called, Hindu, Dothead, Gandhi, whatever it is, go back to your country or whatever. Before I wanted to fight, right? Because I'm a tough guy, all that kind of stuff. And that was just not working at all, and I learned but if I accept it a little bit and I just kind of make a joke about it, it's funny how all of a sudden that guy wants to be my friend, and then I'm introducing all my white friends to Indian food and stuff like that, and they're like, wow, I never thought I'd eat curry. I can, this tastes pretty good. It's yeah, well, don't go to the Star of India buffet for $4.99.
But you do. I mean, you use the humor of it as sort of a way to deflect, and sometimes we're in situations where people say racist shit to you all the time. I hear it all the time. And you kind of roll with it and you're kind of good natured about it. And it kind of pisses me off, right? We have conversations after the fact about this because I'm like, that's bullshit, man. You shouldn't have to do that kind of stuff. It's like, well, I get really kind of defensive for something. And then I don't need to stick up for him because he kick people's asses more than I would. But there's a thing about it, and you talk about sort of this white guilt and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like, this is kind of a white problem to solve, right? It's we keep saying black people got to do this and they got to do that. And it's the people with the power have to give up the power, right? And
would you say that you're embarrassed by what your family of race has become in that sense?
Constantly, yeah. I mean, I see stupid shit coming out all the time. And I think, some of it's just straight up ignorance. It's just lack of exposure. Because I think Americans, especially when you get out of a big city, just have so little exposure to other people and other cultures and other ways of thinking about shit. So it's tricky. This is a hard conversation because it's in some regards, it's I don't want to be mad at people for being dumb, but I want to be mad at people for being dumb.
Oh, same. I struggle with that as well. Right? Because I toggle between being able to have intellectual conversations of how to rationally treat people you disagree with like family, which is really the best way to deal with conflict. Mm-hmm. I toggle between that and these fucking idiots. Forget idiots. A lot of times it's like these fucking horrible, evil people, and that's toxic. But it's like, I don't know. I also think it's natural to evolution. I mean, our society is changing at the pace at which it's changing. I'm glad that it's headed in the direction it is finally, and I'm exhausted by this country that we've been. That I do feel like it's like, okay, this should have happened. I feels like we were ready to do this 20 years ago. Like, why
are we still having this conversation? Yeah.
Why does it feel like other countries are doing better than this? But if you go look around and look at other countries, there's not other countries that are particularly doing better at it. There's other countries, first of all, I travel so much for all my work. Like I immerse myself, I'd say quite frequently in other cultures, and everyone's got their own fucked up shit and they're all trying to figure it out. And, for me, it's like, I feel like, one thing that I do really feel is that, specifically when it comes to race, the people on the other side of this issue, the vast majority of them are actually incredibly decent, loving, wonderful human beings. I mean, look, I'm from North Carolina. So let's talk specifically on a political level. I know a lot of Republicans. One of the kind of core tenets to conservatism is conservatism literally means sameness, and the thing that tradition in the South, at the core of that is family. Mm-hmm. And so these people are actually some of the most loyal people I know. Are these kind of Southern Republicans. Family first, do whatever you can to protect your tribe. And that's why SEC fans are the craziest people in the world. They'll do literally anything to defend their team. And unfortunately, when it comes to a head politically, is when their loyalty transcends, I think, look, to say crassly, their own morality.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I'll be loyal to my family so much that I allow it to blind me from my own values as they relate to humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing I've learned, as I've grown up, because like when I was young, I was just like, in everybody's face, screw you, dude, you're an asshole, blah, 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 blah. But what I've realized, and I agree with everything you just said. But if you go at somebody, they go into they get more deeply entrenched in that view. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's through progressive conversation that you change perspectives and attitudes. Right. I mean, we have these conversations with people all the time where I don't agree with them at all. But we have a dialogue, and I can be respectful. We can be respectful. I can respect and like these people, but we don't agree on a lot of things. But I think that conversation started, and I think that's the way to kind of advance the cause a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to sell stuff when Chris is like with a client in the corner talking about politics. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be a tough one to close.
I would never bring up politics if I did what y'all did. No chance.
Yeah, so Ravi's got my back.
It's a little bit of a tightrope.
Chris goes right in, dude. Chris goes right in, and I keep like kicking him under the table, and I'm like, dude, not right now, man.
But I don't think we've ever lost a deal because we've had these conversations.
No. In fact, I think there's a lot of mutual respect from it. It's just, but I do think that this is the new world, right? We always say, for me, it's been don't talk about religion and politics at work. But now I feel like politics is coming into the workplace. This world is different now, and so there's like a blending happening, and those conversations are going to happen more and more in a business situation. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
I had this thought last night. Let me float this idea by you guys. This is something that I was just, while I was laying in bed thinking about last night. I feel like politics itself are increasingly archaic. The two-party system to me is so irrelevant to the way, and I think that's really contributing in a significant way to what we're experiencing right now. Because at its core, it's tribalism and everyone feeling like they need to go play on one team or the other. And this is the Super Bowl, so someone's got to win, and we all got to play our best. And I feel like so much of it is out of partisanship, when really we live in a time that, and this is a sensibility that is accelerated in the last 10 years, where all of our identities are increasingly nuanced, and there's more intersectionality. I've said that word I think twice or three times now in this, than there's ever been. Niche markets, niche products. We wear each of our choices in life and in shopping as a way to define ourselves. And similarly, I feel like we all have an a la carte menu of values, and we have a need for that now. Anyway, I'm just curious. I wanted to throw that out to you guys because I hadn't discussed that with anyone.
Yeah. No, I think, you're talking kind of to the identity politics that we're kind of living with nowadays. And I think there's a couple things, and I totally agree with you on that. I think that there's a couple things that are going on there, right? I think the biggest problem we have right now is wealth inequality. And wealth inequality is created, it's broken us apart as a single society. So there's no American identity necessarily anymore. There's different groups of people with different levels of wealth, and I think that creates
a completely different experience.
Completely different. I mean, the entrepreneur, the VC in Silicon Valley is so different from the rural Mississippi person, and it's not to say they can't get there, but I was a political science major, and I had a great political science professor who said you can't have a democracy without a strong middle class, because you have this polarization of interests, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that, without that, we're gonna have these two cultures in America that are going to be constantly in conflict.
I agree completely.
And what you were saying about,
do you see a path?
What's that?
Do you see a path to that? Finish what you were saying just now, and then I want to know what you.
I think that I think we really have to. I think we have to address wealth inequality. I think we have to bring the two ends closer together, right? I think that's a healthier way for us as a democracy, and I think not doing that is a bit of an existential threat. But I think also,
is that achieved through a redistribution of wealth, or through creating more opportunities for the lower class, or both? Or
I think that, and this is going to here's where I get into trouble. I think you're going to have some sort of redistributive sort of economic programs, but I do think you have to increase economic opportunity. But there's you have to move it along a little faster, and there's so many entrenched interests. I don't think there's any other way to do it without some sort of wealth redistribution. And that doesn't mean like we're going to become this communist nation, and all that. Everybody
just talking about the difference. It could be as simple as a different look. We have that right now. People who make more money pay more taxes than people who make less money. So like that in and of itself and that's a system that works. We have that because our country needs it. You're just saying more of that, which I entirely agree with.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to where we were in the 50s. Let's go back to the marginal tax rates of the 50s.
What were the marginal? I don't know that.
I mean, there were very high marginal tax rates. The wealthy paid significantly more, but there wasn't the kind of wealth disparity either, right? So it was a little bit of a different animal.
And it's not just through taxes, right? I mean, like what we're seeing an increasing trend of people giving, and obviously that's not a reliable infrastructure,
right? Yeah,
but like rich people deciding that it's in vogue to give is a great trend.
It is, but it's also problematic too, right? Because how they give determines what our priorities in society are. And I think a great example of that is Bill Gates. Bill Gates, turned his attention to education, and he put a lot of money into education, and it screwed up the education system because his priorities weren't appropriate for what education was. He came in with a very tech-centric approach to education, which was a lot of monitoring, testing, analytics, and things like that, right? But that's not how education really works, right?
Wait, why did it hurt education, though? One would think that even if that any foundation effort towards education, if it's done in earnest, even if it fails, should be net good because it experimented with an idea.
Yeah, but what happened is that, I mean, we hear this constant thing about this, all the testing that's in schools and how it's detracting from the mission of teaching and kids' education, right? That came out of a lot of what was going on with Bill Gates. I mean, he was influencing politicians and they were demanding more metrics around how schools were performing. And we got into this very performance-centric model, which is not really beneficial to kids, right? And so, schools were chasing after money, states were chasing after money, and so like one billionaire's, perspective, right or wrong. And I think Bill Gates has talked about how he feels he made mistakes doing that too.
You're saying there needs to be some democratization of, where the efforts are.
Well, right. I mean,
because otherwise that can lead to abuses, even if they're inadvertent.
Right. I mean, he was well-intentioned, and I think a lot of people have good intentions, but, a billionaire donating money shouldn't be how we make public policy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be fucking great. Yeah. I totally agree. It's a fun conversation.
Yeah. We were just saying it's kind of funny. This is not how we intended the conversation to go, but this is a great place for it to go. This is actually ultimately what we enjoy talking about more anyways.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is my favorite. But one of my favorite things about good conversations, when the goal is to have good conversation, which I feel like, I personally feel like I don't do that enough in real life.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I've realized I miss the most, in terms of one of the great benefits of being at the same table in the same room with other people. Like, it's actually what's great about going to a restaurant. It's actually not the restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
It's the fact that you're in a group of people.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And usually the goal there is to have a good conversation.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is what's the way that good conversations meander and run the gamut of topics. And the way that we do it so organically without judgment, I find that I just think it's the best thing in the world. It's actually one of the reasons why when I film stuff, documentary wise, I do so much stuff in cars, I've noticed. And the reason why is because, one of the most unique things about a car ride, I think about this, think back to your, even like a family road trip.
Yeah.
You might be in the car together for, let's say, 5 hours, and you have a conversation in the first 10 minutes. And let's say it's about hummingbirds. 4.5 hours later, something about that hummingbird conversation could come back, and you pick up where you were, and it builds, it goes in a different direction. The music sounds a little different now.
Yes.
That's the beauty of, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's why I think Chris and I, like he was alluding to, we talk about stuff forever. It's like we work together, right? And I'll call him. We'll set up time on the calendar, 2 hours. Dude, we're going to knock down these two things. When we get off of this call, these things have to be done. An hour and a half in, we're like just talking about stuff, and I don't want it to end. So I just keep going, right? And the best part is, and kudos to Chris, and just what I have learned is I need to always know that maybe I'm wrong, and to hear somebody's perspective on something, even though I might stay with my original thought, I'm opening myself up to more of like trying to really understand the other side. And Chris has convinced me of some stuff, right? I mean, I hate admitting it, but like,
likewise,
it's been like I was here and now I'm over here. So like, am I an idiot? Am I stupid? I'm just glad that I came to that realization that, maybe I need to rethink this thing. And, and that's going to happen in life forever for me, like how I think now is going to continuously change. Right.
Right.
Because in my 20s, I just wanted to party and, hang out with white chicks, Now,
How did you do? How did that
did not go good. I mean, the nose.
Not go well.
You know the nose, right? So.
I mean, I made a movie about how it didn't go well for me. So. Yeah, I think I pretty much won the trophy on that not going well.
Oh, that's so good. No, totally. But now it's like, I look back, I just think different. I'm really enjoying my journey of maturing because, before Friday and Saturday nights, if I was in my young 30s, I want to be going out. Now, when my wife says, "Hey, this weekend we have no plans," I'm like, "Boom, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna watch movies and go to bed."
Well, to bring it back to your initial goal. That's why you don't want to go out because that goal's not there anymore. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What am I just going to look around and think about how I can't have sex with these people? Yeah. And I mean, granted it's mutual.
Right. Yeah, totally. But think about it. How many times have you I have met, right? Guys, Indian guys, right? That will say, I'm sorry. There are Indian girls that fall in love with white dudes, right? That happens, right? An Indian girl. But it is very rare that you find a white girl that's going to say, "Man, I really love Indian dudes. Man, there's something about them. I just, I'm a."
Oh no, dude, you're wrong about this.
What?
Indians are hot right now. Yeah.
Really?
I know. I mean, talk about, and I've told my friends this is just my fucking luck, but Indians are getting hot right now.
Really?
We went on a hot streak almost the minute I met my wife. We went on a hot streak. If you go to if you go to New York, people are like, I think I don't know, maybe it's the white guilt stuff. I don't know what it is, but white girls are coming at Indians right now in New York.
Really?
It hasn't spread everywhere, but in New York, I've heard them talk about it.
Man, this is the best news ever. Wow.
Is it the best or the worst?
Actually,
it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, now
the timing sucks.
It's kind of annoying. Yeah, like. Dude, imagine. Come on, man! You play this game for 40 years, and then you retire, and they go on a hot streak. That's awful.
It's because of all the good work you guys have done in the field.
I get no. I don't think I helped the cause at all. I don't think I'll get any good move. I won't be the Malcolm X of Indian guys getting laid. That's I'm not going to be in that history, unfortunately.
Oh, that's great.
Well, it's funny because after your movie and all the things we watched it. Everybody watched that, and we're kind of rooting for you to go back to your girlfriend and all that stuff because clearly you were there. But in the end, you ended up marrying somebody else.
Yeah,
and she's not Indian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, which was, by the way, what's funny is my wife looks Indian in pictures.
Yeah.
And when our movie came out, which I think it was 2015 was when the movie came out, at which point, I think that was around when I got engaged.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that must have been awkward.
At the time, so the movie took place in 2009 or 10 or something like that. Okay. So, just at a different time in my life, and I had already moved on to this other relationship. People got online and they saw that I had this girlfriend who looked like Indian. And so they thought, the people were pissed off. They're in their minds, I basically just dumped this white girl and the next day went and got an arranged marriage. And so they saw me as this sad sellout. People were so angry and just shocked because the movie ends in a way where you think I'm with her.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, totally.
And it jumped, that was a true story at the time, but
I gotta say, I really adore what your wife does because I had a daughter who did not sleep through the night for 18 months, which I think is your story too, right? And she went into being a sleep therapist.
Yeah, she's a pediatric sleep consultant. Yeah. So she's actually in grad school for marriage and family therapy, and she's been doing this pediatric sleep consultant thing along the way, and it's been It's been awesome. She's very passionate about
Oh, dude,
awesome.
After 18 months of no sleep, my wife and I were like out of our minds, and we hired a sleep consultant.
Oh, you did? That's what my wife does.
We did. And he came in and he changed a ton of stuff that we were doing. And in a week, she was sleeping through the night. I'm like, we are the biggest fucking idiots ever. We waited 18 months for this.
Yeah, dude. It's such a good, my wife is, God bless her. She's such a perfectionist. And so everything she does, she's pulling every resource. Now, obviously that leads to a lot of anxiety and exhaustion. But when it comes to parenting, she goes at it so hard and she knows so much. One of the things we just started doing, which I look back now and I immediately, I was like, hey, like, we should just do this for the rest of our lives. We got it's not a therapist, but it's basically it's almost like a parenting consultant, like someone who knows everything about childcare and development. And so we were consulting her on, just behavioral stuff with our daughter and just better ways that we can parent her. And I realized I'm like, is there any better investment than having a conversation with this woman every 2 weeks about just random questions that we have about parenting and
totally,
absolutely.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's like,
Well, and that's another American thing too. I think a lot of Americans feel they got to go it alone with their kids, right? Mm-hmm. And because they don't have that extended family so close or so integrated into their immediate family, I don't know that they get the benefit of some of that, wisdom of, the previous generation or the help, Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Part of the reason that Americans in cities, at least, are seeking out professional help in every facet of our lives, whether it's like therapy or housekeeping,
right,
is in large part because the breakdown of community and the breakdown of family. We've become so individualized that we seek the things that we used to get from community and family in all these different places. By the way, apps themselves could not be more of a culprit as well. God. I mean, like I don't need a ride to the airport. I have Uber.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're just not dependent on each other anymore.
Yeah. Could you imagine like for me, my in-laws fly in town from Florida. There's no way I'm going to say, take an Uber. You go there. No, you can't. Never, ever. Right. I mean, it's a
wait. Are you? Yeah. What are you doing with Indians? Are you never putting them in Ubers? I've eased into it, but when I have done it, I have not felt good about it.
You don't wait. You don't take Ubers?
No. With Indians specifically, it's tough to tell. With Americans, they almost feel weird if you pick them up.
Right.
They're like, no, I'm gonna I just take a fucking Uber.
Yeah.
Like with Indians, it's like, oh no, I'll come pick you up. I'll pick up your bags.
Yep.
Like this, you can't touch the bags. Like when you come over, I'll give you food. I'll give you a drink. Like this is all part of the thing. And if you don't do it, you're like a bad Indian. So like what I'm saying is like with my parents now, LAX is like an hour and a half. It depends on the day. My parents and we're like, just take an Uber. Like I'll send you the Uber. I'll help you find the Uber, but you get an Uber and I'll see you when you get home. And that works out great. And if I'm close to someone, I can do that because it makes sense practically.
Yeah.
But like, if my mama and mommy, my aunt and uncle showed up, that wouldn't come. I would 100% pick them up.
No for sure.
My mother-in-law absolutely refuses to let me pick her up. She'll come in and she's like, no, I'll take the train or I'll take this or whatever. Absolutely don't.
White people are great like that. My white mother-in-law does that too. She's great. She's like, why would you pick me up? I go, you're right. Okay. Hey. Well, white people are almost insanely private to the extent that Indians are oppressively not private.
Yeah. Well, and like I come more from a Scandinavian culture, which is the absolute polar opposite of Indian culture, because we're all very like, we're not going to hug or touch. We're just going to kind of wave, and we're going to be kind of stern and sit here in the cold, right? It's just it's a very different. And that's why, like, when I was dating a Persian girl for all that time, and like really integrated in her family, it was such culture shock.
Right.
But I loved it. I did love it. I mean, I thought, there's a part of it that like drove me nuts, but there's a part of it that like I'm so jealous of. That intimacy and closeness, and how free they are with each other. I thought that I always thought that was really impressive, and the food was great.
Oh, the food.
Yeah, I love it too. It's been an interesting culture clash actually with my wife, because she comes from a very traditionally American family, and they are. Look, by the way, they're insanely close. Yeah. They're like an awesome family, but they're very respectful of each other.
Yeah.
They take like a thoughtful approach to each other when they speak, and I just don't understand any of that. And like, like there is, we've gotten better at it, but like her learning to talk to my parents was hard for her.
Yeah.
Because she's like, we don't usually raise our voice and say so many things. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works. You just gotta say a bunch of shit, and then eventually something happens.
Yeah.
I know her pain. I know her pain.
Yeah. You get it?
I totally get it.
Raja, tu to progress ma godo thai jais. Right? That's the best one. That's the best one. You know what that means? So what that means, Chris, is
you'll keep saying
I'm gonna have to subtitle this one.
Yeah, he's like, so you keep saying progress to godo thai jais. That means you'll go stupid. You'll become dumb.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to pause for a minute and just have a quick snack. I'm gonna do this like the beauty vloggers.
Got a unicorn sprinkle. Have you tasted that one yet?
Yeah. Are you kidding? It's the last one in the box. And I just got it. I got this box yesterday, man.
He had to take it out.
And I'm halfway through a s'mores blast box too.
Wow.
Which is totally unhealthy, but just eating snack bars all day.
Yeah.
But I will say this is amazing, and I think I absolutely love what you're doing with this saves lives, and I like to think that I'm saving children here.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, great, man. For those of you listening, it's called This Saves Lives. For every bar that you buy, we donate a meal packet to a child in need, and we're in every Starbucks in the country. There, I ended this like a real press appearance, you guys. We finally, yeah. I want to vomit in my mouth a little bit, but
I know that feeling.
I appreciate you doing it today, and that's really sweet of you. Thank you.
Well, you know what? The one thing I got a suggestion for you about this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I don't eat meat, which is another reason why it works really well with Indian food.
This guy's more Patel than I am.
Yeah, totally. But you have like these Rice Krispie treat things. Mm-hmm. And Rice Krispie treats use marshmallows, and marshmallows have gelatin, which is not vegetarian, right? So vegetarians don't get to have Rice Krispie treats.
But you're eating
these, however,
you literally are eating it. Oh, okay, go ahead.
These are not marshmallows. They do not have gelatin in them. They are vegetarian, but you don't list it on the box. You should.
Do you think that would? Is there a big
usually when
population of people to whom the gelatin thing would matter?
Oh, absolutely. And Indians.
No, but Indians, I guarantee you, Indians don't know about gelatin. We're eating gelatin.
We're all eating gelatin. No kids.
Right. Indians are crushing gelatin. Yeah. We don't care. We don't ask us. Don't tell us.
But like when I see marshmallow, I'm just like, well, that's not for me, right?
I've never heard of this. Would there be like a label that says no gelatin?
I don't know. You're the guy in the food business.
Well, that's a gross thing to read.
You could just list it as vegetarian.
Done. I'll tell our CEO.
Yeah. So
these are good.
This is how it is to be with Chris.
Dude. I love that. Well, I hope. I mean, let's hope it takes off after this. I'm gonna credit you.
Well, is the business doing well?
I want to know, man. Yeah, exactly. Like how to get started.
It started because it came out of I had, I was kind of an entrepreneur before I got in entertainment, and one of my friends with whom I was in a TV pilot called me up one day and said that he and his other actor buddy had this idea for this company, and they'd done some kind of initial research into it, and they wanted to help alleviate starvation, specifically severe acute malnutrition, which impacts, millions of kids every year. Like a child dies every 10 seconds from hunger. And they wanted to help provide more of the meal packets that, can save these kids' lives because they're expensive, but they exist. And they showed me the 60 Minutes piece that Anderson Cooper did about this one specific meal packet called Plumpy Nut.
It's a ready-to-eat, vitamin-enriched concoction called Plumpy Nut, an unusual name for a food that may just be the most important advance ever to cure and prevent malnutrition.
Which kids take twice a day for 8 to 10 weeks, and more often than not, it brings them back to life. So they want to start a company that could provide those kind of in perpetuity. And this guy Ryan called me up, and we ended up having a really dynamic conversation. And I had already been at a point in my career in entertainment where basically I was bored, and I was thinking of quitting acting and going to start another company. I had a decent amount of cash saved up, and so the call kind of happened at the right time. I kind of knew the business that they wanted to make better than they did. And, the next day I kind of jumped in and became a co-founder with them. And Kristen Bell and I were the first investors in the company. And we started it out of my apartment in Venice. And this was probably 2012, 2013 or something like that. Probably 2012.
How'd you get Kristen Bell involved in it?
She was friends with this guy Ryan that I just talked about. They both had acted in Veronica Mars together, and so they were friends. And and then we ended up getting a ton of other celebrities involved. There's probably like 20 celebrities that are investors in this company. A bunch of like-minded people who cared a lot about alleviating malnutrition around the world, and that helped us get when you're doing something good with your brand. And I think this is really the competitive advantage in the marketplace of social enterprise companies, is when your for-profit business does something that's also nonprofit inherently, it opens a lot of doors. And so it gives you a competitive advantage in the marketplace. You get, specifically in the snack business, we had grocery stores that, they usually charge these things called slotting fees. Okay. And that's basically, it's almost like what are those things you buy like at Soldier Field, the PALs or whatever to get it. Yeah. It's almost like that. Like you're paying what's called a slotting fee, which is you're paying for the real estate in each store. So for each SKU, I remember we launched with 3 SKUs. It wasn't uncommon for stores to want $10,000 to $20,000 as an upfront fee just to have the right to sell that SKU. That's per SKU. Wow. So imagine, if you're at $50,000 just per store to get your products just in, think about how much capital that is. Multiplied over thousands of stores, right?
You have to sell a lot.
Yeah, you have to sell a lot, and you have to actually have a lot of cash just to pay those fees up front, right?
Yeah.
But you have to sell a lot also just to cover that sunk cost. So we had a lot of stuff like that was waived because people wanted to help us. Oh. That's why all these celebrities came on board. That's why so many people helped us get the message out early on. And then we also just had a lot of friends and family that did what they could to connect us to people who could help us.
You had a bunch of Patels kicking in some money, right?
Yeah. Funny enough, I didn't use the Patel community as much as I expected to. Though I will say everyone on Facebook, I don't know. I'm assuming I have like 2,000 or 3,000 Facebook friends, and I literally know them all personally, and they are incredible. Tell you what, the Patel community really came and really got involved with our documentary. Like we marketed our Patels, and Patels were putting yard signs out for us. Like really went to bat.
Yeah.
There's an Indian remake of an American movie, and it got the trailer for it broke all records. So Avengers, like on Twitter or whatever it was where they were distributing the teaser, they got 4.2 million or something like that. But this remake, an Indian remake, got 8.4 million hits like within 24 hours or something like that on the thing. I have to find the article exactly, but it was way higher. And I think it just speaks to the growing Indian demographic and growing both, domestically here in the US and in India, because, you're talking, more than 1 billion people.
Fault in Our Stars.
Fault in Our Stars. Thank you. Gosh, my brain is going. Fault in Our Stars. But so they did a remake of it in an Indian version of it, and it like blew past the Avengers.
Yeah. No, it's insane, dude. I'm making stuff in India. I have a show coming out on Netflix India in September, and it's very much because India is. Well, first of all, everyone knows there's a lot of Indians in India. Yeah. What they may not know is that there's a lot of Indians outside of India too, and it's actually the largest diaspora in the world. And I think Indians internationally are kind of becoming what African Americans were domestically in the 80s, like 70s and 80s, which is like we're in the nascent stages of realizing that we are our own marketplace that can support itself in any market. It's so fucking powerful. It's so sticky. We all, we all watch the same stuff, share stuff. It's exciting, dude. What's happening? Exciting.
Well, Indian audience has so much money and influence now, much more than in the past. So it's huge demographic.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, just like now having kids, man, when I was growing up, there was a period of time I wanted to be white. I went to so many bar and bat mitzvahs. I wanted one myself, like that didn't go over very good with my dad. But, now, man, I just have a lot of pride, and that's why I try to expose my kids to so much Indian stuff, like your movies and stuff like that, is because, how else are they going to really learn about it, But once you expose it to them, they're like, wow, this is really cool, But you just got to expose it to them.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I will say, here's my recommendation. I got the Dragon's Dream Cookies and Cream, S'mores Blast, Unicorn Sprinkle Surprise, Beehive Jive Oats and Honey, Mammoth Marshmallow Crisp, and those are my recommendations.
Those are all good bars. I'm
allergic to nuts, so I steer clear of the.
Wow! Well, you got the nut-free kids bar for you.
I got to say, thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy life.
Man, this has been a great conversation. It really has been. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always awesome to talk to people who are very thoughtful and doing good things, and have a mindset about making things better. And I love that. Your movies have been phenomenal, and we've been on a binge watch of everything that you've done, and it's been great. So
it's been so fun. Like I've already watched so much, but
70% of what I've done is the worst, and I beg you to just save yourselves from it. Just watch 2 or 3 things and call it a day, you guys.
So Rob, man, dude, thank you so much, man. Like I really, really appreciate it. So the Patel love is there and living.
Such a pleasure to talk to y'all, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to meet you too.
Yeah, same, man. Same. Keep up the good work there, you guys. We'll talk soon.
You too.
Yeah,
take care, man.
Right,
bye.
If you like what you saw, hit that like button and click on that subscribe button. That helps a ton. And if you want to get notifications when I post new content, click on that bell icon. And I will see you in the next video.